Hey everybody, Ramey here, and today what I'm going to do is we are going to talk about security, computer security, malware, adware, antivirus, all that kind of good stuff. Just let me kind of get set up here and make sure that we're in my streaming channel so that I can see all your comments and everything like that. There we go. Let's see. Let me just welcome everyone on chat. There we go, just so I can make sure that I can see your questions as they come in. Okay. Let's see, perfect. All right, everyone, so one of the things I like to talk about is computer security and mobile device security and, being tracked by websites and being tracked on your computer and monitored. And how do you protect yourself online? This past weekend, I was home and my father's computer had some either adware viruses on it that we had to catch and pick up. And he wasn't sure how he had gotten them, especially because he is he claims to be a tech guy. So you wouldn't necessarily think that he would have these kind of problems, but he did. So everyone has these problems. So let's kind of talk about security and how you actually solve some of these issues and how you can protect yourself online. All right, so the first thing when I talk about security is like a giant onion in that there are multiple different layers. And the key is to figure out what do you want to do? What are your goals? What are your needs? Because there is no one security solution fits everyone. Like you might just want to be protected so that, you're just not getting viruses. You might want to be protected so that no one can see what you've searched. You might not want your work to find out. You might not want other people to find out. And unfortunately, a lot of the things I'm going to tell you today about security are things that criminals do as well. So, keep that in mind that, some of the things I'm telling you are showing you how to hide what you do. And there are unfortunately people out there using that for bad purposes. So keep that in mind. But there are great purposes why you don't want to be tracked. Like, for example, if you were concerned about a health related issue and you're searching that online, do you want your employer to know if you're searching that at work? Do you want them to know about it? Even if you're home, do you want your internet service provider to see about that? For researchers, like for faculty, if you're a professor and you are going to be like researching something that's kind of a controversial issue, even something against your university or against something they believe in, you might want to hide those tracks from them. So I'm going to talk to you about how you actually do that and what does this all mean. So there are a bunch of different kinds of security out there. Bunch of different kinds of things you can do to your computer. So many different things. It becomes confusing and overwhelming for people. They're not even sure where to begin. I'm going to try to break it down and make it really, really, really simple. All right, so let's see. Let me just make sure things set up here. All right, we got a couple people online here. Okay, let me just make sure this is all set. Looks like it is. Yes. Okay. Make sure you're seeing what I'm seeing. Yes, you are. Perfect. Okay, so the first thing you do, what are your goals? What do you want to do? Maybe you don't know yet, so let's talk through what those can be. So like me personally, my goals are that I don't want anyone to be tracking me. I don't want anyone to be monitoring what I'm doing. I also want to make sure that I'm secure and I'm not going to get any viruses. And I want to make sure there's nothing on my computer happening that I don't approve of going through the internet. So let's talk about how I do that. So I've created every year I create my annual security recommendations. But if you don't really know what I'm talking about here when I'm doing this, you're not really sure what I'm even saying. Like why do I recommend a certain browser or something like that? Or an email address to be private. So let's talk about those layers. So I said security is like an onion. You can keep peeling back layers. So think about it like this. If someone wants access to your system, the first thing they're going to do is not necessarily looking for your system, but if someone wants access to a system, they're going to look for all the easy ones. So think about bicycles. If I'm going to go steal a bike off a bike rack, What's the highest chance of what kind of bike is going to get stolen first? It's the bike without any lock on it. I can just go grab it and ride away. But if a bike has even the most generic thin lock on it, that's probably preventing so many thefts by just having a generic thin lock on it. Computer security is the same way. Now, if someone specifically, if you have a really, really good expensive bike and someone's going to target that bike, you need more than that thin lock. So you're going to have to do something else. So computer security is just like that, exactly the same. So let's talk about all those layers. All right. So, and there are multiple layers here. So I'm going to try to cover all of them in this short little time video. I'm going to try to cover as many as I can. Okay. So first thing is your entire computer or your entire mobile device. How do you just protect everything? How do I just protect it? Protect everything. Protect my whole entire phone. Protect my whole computer from anyone spying on me, from antivirus software, from just protect everything. Fortunately, this is the easiest thing for you to do. There are most pieces of software out there that are designed to protect you. Just cover everything because they understand that most home users don't have the knowledge means to actually individually select what they want. So for example, if I just want to make this super easy and I just want to say I need my computer and phone just need to be protected from viruses, malware, everything, Norton McAfee, boom, right there. Just buy their full entire package and it's going to really protect you from everything. The problem with these kind of systems is they really can bog you down. What I mean is they can make your internet really slow. They can make your computer run really slow. So they're kind of a pain to just have. So like I don't personally recommend either of those pieces of software. I like picking and choosing and composing, you know, what do I want to do? What are my goals? So let's talk about how you do that. All right. So the first layer of general security that I think people should have are really two parts. You need some kind of antivirus software and you need some kind of browser that protects you. So what does that mean? So first of all, antivirus software. Tons of different antivirus software out there, and a lot of antivirus software is free. For example, when you buy a Windows machine, you automatically get Windows antivirus for free. The problem with that is I don't think it's as good as some of the other ones out there. So there's tons and tons of free antivirus software out there. That is your first layer of protection. Let me show you the one that I'm using right now. So first layer protection you have to have on a computer. Antivirus software. I use a free version of a software called Kaspersky, but there is many different kinds out there that can protect you. All right. So really any antivirus software that's free is good enough. So you don't need to spend money on this. Get a free antivirus software. You are protected from viruses. This is one I use, Kaspersky. It's free. There's a bunch of good ones out there. I don't really want to recommend brands. Okay, so that's antivirus. Next thing, browser. Now, browser is really interesting because I have two recommendations here for two different reasons. So the browser that I use by choice is Firefox. And let me talk about like my settings and how I protect myself and why I protect myself and what I'm doing when I'm using Firefox. So first of all, I use Firefox because it's an open source browser. It also does a lot with security. There's a lot of security settings within Firefox. If I'm using Google Chrome or Internet Explorer, those are owned by companies who can track you and see what you're doing within their browsers. I use Firefox because they're not doing that. It's open source. Mozilla is not doing that. It's one of the reasons I really choose Firefox. Okay, but within Firefox, I do 3 different things to make sure that my computer my browsing experience is secure. Okay, so the first thing I do in Firefox is I make sure that I'm in private mode only. You know, when you go into your options, you can have a regular window or a private window. In the security settings, I have it set that I only use private mode. That means that my history, let me just show you. Those are my bookmarks, Mozilla Firefox, where I might not even be able to see history. Yeah, I can't even see my history. It's just naughty. Oh, history. Nothing. Nothing pops up here. Recent history, empty. Why is it empty? Because I'm in private mode. So what that means is that if someone were to steal my computer, they couldn't see anything that I've been looking at online. I don't want anyone. I want my computer to be like, so if someone were to take it, they wouldn't even know it was mine. So someone cannot see my history. It's never recorded. I'm never recording myself. A lot of people don't realize this. When you're using your browser, you are actually recording every single thing you are doing. You're just recording it. No one else has to even record it. You're just recording yourself. So the first setting is I'm in private mode, which means I'm not recording myself. Okay, next thing I do. First of all, I use something called within Firefox or Chrome or any browser really, you can download extensions. I have two security extensions installed on my browser. They are HTTPS everywhere. HTTPS everywhere. What does this do? Why would I use this? So what HTTPS means is that like when it forces every website to use a secure connection. What does that mean? So like, let's say I am going to my bank account. By going to an HTTPS account, like using that in my URL, what's happening is that if someone were monitoring my browsing habits, they could only see that I went to my bank, but they can't see what I did. So if I don't use the HTTPS, someone could see everything I did on that site. So HTTPS helps keep you secure. So I use HTTPS everywhere. It's free, it installs right in Firefox, and no one can see more than the site you have visited. Next thing that I use is an extension called uBlock Origin. uBlock Origin. What this extension does, let me just check, okay. What this extension does is it blocks all ads and trackers. So you can see, I think I reinstalled my computer a few months ago. I've blocked over 1 million ads and trackers in my browser in the last like probably 4 or 5 months. So you're being tracked with cookies, with all kinds of things that websites are installing on your machine all the time. Just to give you an example. So every time I go to log into Amazon, they tell me, we don't recognize this computer. We're going to send you a text message to verify that it's you. Why? Because my username and password aren't good enough to log into Amazon. They want to know that this computer has logged in before, which is good security-wise, but it's scary to think like they're tracking my computer. They're tracking every time I log in, how many times, from where. It's scary to think about that. So using something like uBlock Origin makes it so they can't do that anymore. They think that you're on a public device every time you go to log in. They don't know you've ever been there before from that machine. And I want it like that on purpose. Now, let's say I don't like that for Amazon.com. You can simply click this and turn it off for that site if you want to. And it stays off for just that site. Because sometimes like using these security settings can kind of break some websites. So you have to play around with them and see what you like and what you don't like. But I block all ads, all trackers by using uBlock Origin. All right, so that's my browser settings for my computer. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask, type in, ask me something. Those are my browser settings for my computer. All right, there is another browser that I will recommend for your computer too, but I want to wait until I start talking about VPN to get there. Let me talk about browser settings for your mobile device. So for mobile device, whether you're using Android or whether you're using Apple phone, my favorite browser is something called Firefox Focus. Firefox Focus. It's a really light browser, which means like it's much quicker than other browsers. It's basically like always browsing in private mode, but private mode light. Like it will not track anything, record anything. If I go to use it and shut it off, all my history and everything is just gone. I don't use Safari on my iPhone ever. If I didn't like Firefox Focus, I'd be using Firefox. But there aren't extensions for the mobile device like there are for the computer. So I use Firefox Focus so that all my browsing habits are not being recorded by anyone. Okay, so that's browsers. There's still one more browser. Let me get there in a second. Okay, next thing I want to talk about is something called VPN. Virtual Private Networks. So what a VPN does is a VPN makes it so that no one can see what I'm doing on my computer. So like when I'm home on my Wi-Fi network, My internet service provider can see every single thing I'm doing on the internet. I mean, they can see every website I visit. So do I trust Verizon or Charter or Time Warner, AOL, or whoever my ISP is to not sell my data? You know, selling my data like all the sites I browse. Do I want them to, they can legally do it. They can legally sell my data. So do I want them to be able to do that? Do I want them to be able to see what I'm doing? Do I want them to be able to see what I'm searching? Maybe you're at work and you're like, I don't want my company to be able to see what I'm doing on my work computer. I don't want them to see what I'm doing in my office. How do you prevent that? There are two ways, and the first one is called a VPN. What a VPN does, and here's the VPN I'm using. I use one called CyberGhost, but there are tons and tons of VPNs out there. Basically what a VPN does, so like let's say my left hand is my computer, my other hand is my internet service provider. What the VPN does is it makes my internet service provider not sure what computer something's coming from. It changes something called my IP address. It's like your home address. So just imagine that I was going to send a piece of mail out, but I didn't want the person on the other end to see what my home address was. Pretty easy. I just wouldn't write my address on it, right, on that envelope, and I would just send it to the person. Computers don't work that way. The address is always attached to it. What a VPN does in the most basic, simple terms is it hides that address, gives you a fake one so that no one can come back and track to your computer. All right, so really simple. That's the most basic explanation of what a VPN does. It's a lot more complicated than that, but I don't want to get into that in this video whatsoever. I just want you to know like the basics. A VPN gives you a fake IP address so that no one can come back and track you. That's what a VPN does. It hides you. Disadvantage of using this VPN, they do slow your internet connection down a tad. It's not something I really notice too much, but it is something that you do notice. Now, when do I use a VPN? So me personally, I don't use a VPN at home. I don't really have a problem. I know that my internet company is probably watching the websites I view, but I don't care too much about that. When I do care to use my because it slows down my system, and I'd rather have the speed than worry about the privacy for that. Just, that's my opinion. Some people use them at home all the time. But when do I use my VPN 100% of the time? Whenever I am on a Wi-Fi unit that is not my personal one. So when I'm at work, when I am at Starbucks, when I am at a hotel, using their Wi-Fi, I am on VPN 100% of the time because I don't know who's on their network. I don't know who's monitoring it. I don't know what they're trying to do. I don't trust it. So I am on VPN 100% of the time. Same thing with my mobile device. I will have my VPN active 100% of the time while I'm somewhere else using their Wi-Fi. You install VPN on your computer and phone. You can search around, find different VPNs. There's a bunch of free ones, bunch of ones that cost money. Really, you know, it's up to you how much you want to spend and what you want to do. But any of the VPNs out there are going to be good enough. So just do a Google search, like top 10 VPNs, choose from the list. Average cost of a VPN, probably like $30 a year. You find deals out there, like I actually paid $80 for life for CyberGhost, so I get it forever. And that includes my mobile device and computer. So I just have it forever. But there's tons of other good ones out there. I don't think you got to buy CyberGhost. It's not that important, the company, so much. At least when you're first starting out researching VPNs. As you get more sophisticated, that matters a lot more. But when you're first starting out, no, not at all. All right, so that's that. That's the VPN part. Okay, so I said that, you know, when you're using your VPN at work or on your work computer, that your work's not going to be able to track you. There are some ways they still can. So I just want to make you aware of that. If you're like banking on this, you're like, there's no way my work can track me because I'm using a VPN. If you're using a work machine and they've installed things on your computer, they can actually be recording your screen or have a keylogger or something like that, like capturing everything you type on your machine. Whether you're using VPN or not, they're going to be able to see that because they've installed the software on your machine already. So be aware of that. I don't think most companies are doing that. I don't think universities are doing that. But I also don't put it past anyone either. So just be aware that there are ways around this if you're using a company machine. They can install certain things on your device. Okay, that's VPNs. Now, let me get back. I said there was another browser that I use sometimes, and that's similar to a VPN. All right, so let's say you don't want a VPN. You're like, well, I don't search things too often, but I'd like to have a browser that's really private. All right, so there's a browser called Tor, T-O-R. I'm opening it up right now, and I'll put it on my screen in a second. The Tor browser uses the code from Firefox. It's an organization now, but it was developed with the Department of Defense to make sure that everything that you do online is private. There are people out there that will argue that Tor is much preferred to a VPN. Tor is simply a web browser. So your VPN protects your whole like computer. So like it protects like people like all connections on your computer. Tor browser is just protecting your browser. Notice, let me just go to a website. Let me just pick something. Since I'm talking about my campus, I'll go to my campus. So when I go to a website, notice I type it in. Tor takes a little longer. Why? Because it's redirecting my IP address so that, you know, my internet service provider can't see what I'm doing. But Tor is used by journalists. It's used by people doing any kind of research. It's used by government officials like in the Department of Defense. So it's a very, very secure browser designed to keep you anonymous so that no one can check anything you're doing. Notice the default search engine that is used by Tor is DuckDuckGo. A lot of people who don't want Google to track their search terms will use DuckDuckGo instead. You can see by default Tor is using DuckDuckGo search engine. So that is another thing I do in my browser a lot is I use DuckDuckGo as well. But Tor is the most secure browser, but a lot of websites don't work well with Tor. Why don't a lot of websites work well with Tor? Because it's so secure that it breaks some websites. So it's something to play around with. But whenever I'm like on campus, I'm always using Tor browser for everything. Unless they're videoing my screen or keylogging, they're not seeing what I'm doing with Tor. I think it's a little easier than VPN because first of all, Tor is free. You don't need to, you just install the browser and you just open it up like Firefox or Chrome or any other browser. Really simple. You just open it up, use it. I love Tor. You know, I'm a Firefox user and Tor is based on Firefox's code. So great browser to use, great browser to check out. I think it's, you know, if you're a little just getting into being more private online, Tor is a great way to do it. Whenever you close Tor browser, there's no history recorded or anything. You don't need to change any settings on the Tor browser. It's just designed to keep you secure, keep you safe, keep you private. So if you're researching something you don't want anyone else to see, just use Tor browser, you're safe. Some people argue it's safer than VPN. All right, so those are some basic things. There are still some more things you can do to keep private. All right, so that's VPN. So I've talked about browser settings. I've talked about browser on mobile, and I've now talked about VPN. I talked about Tor. I just mentioned DuckDuckGo, which is a search engine which doesn't track you because Google search engine does. Next thing. And guys, if you have any questions, please ask. Because there's so much about this I could talk about. I'm just trying to give you like the high level overview. But there's so much more I could talk about. All right, next thing. Your device in general. So your computer in general is tracking the stuff you do. Like every time you open up a program or every time you use something, like it's monitoring like the kind of stuff that you do. So like when you hear about like, you know, me and my wife, we like watching 48 Hours Mystery, and you always see the people like their computer, like they're like, oh, we went onto their computer and we saw all their search results, everything they've ever searched and everything they did on their computer and everything they've ever opened up and all their pictures and all this stuff. I'm not trying to tell that person how to not get in trouble because I want them to, but I just always cringe in my head thinking, wow, they could have prevented that so easily. So one of the things, there are all kinds of computer cleaners out there. So like when you have your trash bin on your computer, like let's say you delete a bunch of stuff off your computer, something that's highly sensitive, and you want it deleted from your computer, and you go to your trash bin, you right click and you say empty recycle bin, just know that you didn't necessarily delete that off your computer. It can still be there. At least traces of that file can still be there. So you have to make sure that you're actually deleting stuff. So how do you do that? There are a bunch of pieces of software out there. The one that I like to use is called CC Cleaner. I probably run through this once every few weeks on my machine. But what CC Cleaner does is, first of all, it's free. You can pay for it, but most people just need the free version again. And you run it, and it goes through your computer and actually deletes all those file traces and make sure they're not there. If you accidentally aren't deleting your internet search history, it takes care of all that kind of stuff for you. Deletes all those cookies and weird things that can be saved. It just goes through and deletes all of them. And it does a good job of it. There's a bunch of other cleaners out there similar to this. I don't want to recommend one brand, but this is a good one. Okay. Those are the big main things I recommend people do when they start thinking about security. Let me just look through here and see if I've missed anything. No, not really. I have email here, so yes, like if you're using Gmail can track you, and Google has access to your emails and stuff like that. Some people prefer to have like an anonymous email address. One of the most famous ones is called Proton Mail. Proton Mail doesn't record or store any of your stuff. It's an anonymous email, so I can sign up for it without providing my name or contact info. So if I had to send someone something sensitive, I could use Proton Mail to do that. Again, this is an email that is also used for bad purposes, just like all these other security things sometimes. So, but it is an anonymous email. Okay, so let me just kind of recap what I've talked about here today. So I started out talking about your browser. I prefer Firefox. I recommended a couple extensions you can use to make sure people can't track you, to block ads, stuff like that. I talked about mobile device browser. I talked about what a VPN is and kind of why you would use it and when you would use it, how much it costs. Then I talked about the Tor browser and how that's almost like a VPN for a browser. Very secure, one of the most secure browsers out there. I mean, it is the most secure browser out there. Also, I talked about the DuckDuckGo search engine, which is used by Tor browser. It's also my default browser in Firefox. So like if I go to search something in Firefox, you can see search with DuckDuckGo. It's automatically doing that. I talked about antivirus software, which I use Kaspersky, but there's a bunch out there. Oh, one last thing I wanted to talk about that I didn't. Just adware and malware. So what I'm using is I think the easiest thing is just use the free version of Malwarebytes. Malwarebytes. They're well known as a company that, takes care of malware and adware. I run that through my system every few weeks along with so I run Malwarebytes and my antivirus. Every few weeks, if I notice something acting slow, I'll run them through. I very rarely have a virus because I'm pretty aware of what I'm doing online. I don't go to weird websites and stuff where I'm going to download stuff. I don't click weird emails. I'm way too cautious. But yes, I really like Malwarebytes for a free adware solution. So what do I have installed on my computer? I have all of this. I have Firefox. I've got these two extensions. I use DuckDuckGo. I also have Tor. I use Tor sometimes. I use Firefox Focus on my phone. I have a VPN. I don't really use it at home, but I use it when I travel. My antivirus, which is running all the time, is Kaspersky. My malware adware is Malwarebytes. I have that. I only run it every few weeks. And that's about it. I don't use a firewall. I use Windows default firewall. And that's about it. Does anyone have any questions? Those are my basic security settings that I'm using. There's so much more to this that you could go into. And this is like the high level overview of like things you can start to think about. This is very far from, very far from in-depth. Anyway, this video will be, video, and I'm going to put it in podcast too because it doesn't need to be video. Will be up. You can always post questions to it if you have any. Otherwise, thanks for watching. Have a good day, y'all.